My name is Olivia Hayes. And if you had told me 10 years ago that I'd be sitting in a corner office overlooking downtown Chicago, I would have laughed. Not because I didn't dream big, I always did, but because back then I was the kind of woman people dismissed without a second thought. Especially him, my old boss. This morning, as I smooth the sleeves of my silk blouse and glance at the city glittering below me, my phone buzzes on the desk. The screen lights up with an email subject line that makes my heart kick. Lease renewal, Hayes Property Group. That name, my name, sitting right above the company I once worked for. The same company where I was treated like I was invisible. I sip my coffee, the rich dark roast warming my throat, and let myself feel the irony for a moment. Years ago, my boss took my parking spot, told me it was too close to the building for someone at my level. That humiliation burned into me deeper than I admitted back then. Today, his company is negotiating with me because I owe him a lot. But the truth is, nobody in this office knows the full story. Nobody knows how close I came to quitting on myself before I ever learned how to fight back. I lean back in my chair, the leather cool against my skin, and stare at the message glowing on my screen. This is the moment I've been waiting for. The moment the past circles back, knocking on my door, asking to be let in. And God, do I have a story to tell? I was 24 the first time I realized how small someone could make you feel with just a few words. Back then, I worked as an assistant at Carter and Brooks Financial. The job wasn't glamorous. Endless spreadsheets, coffee runs, organizing files nobody cared about, but it was steady. It was supposed to be my foot in the door. My chance to prove myself. The morning it happened, I remember pulling into the company's parking lot extra early. I'd just bought my first car, a dusty blue Honda Civic that smelled faintly of my mom's lavender hand lotion because she used to ride with me everywhere. I parked in spot 17, the one I'd been using for months, right by the side entrance. I even allowed myself a little pride as I stepped out in my neatly pressed skirt and blazer, clutching my second-hand tote. But when I came back down at lunch, my car wasn't in spot 17. Instead, a silver BMW gleamed in its place. Confused, I circled a lot until I found my Civic parked 2 rows back, crooked, like someone had shoved it into the space. My stomach dropped. I marched upstairs, trying to keep my voice steady, and found Mr. Mitchell, my boss, leaning against the break room counter with his designer tie loosened, laughing with 2 other managers. "Excuse me," I said, my hands shaking as I clutched the strap of my bag. Someone moved my car out of my spot. He didn't even look surprised. He just smirked and said, "That spot's too close to the building for an assistant. I told security to take care of it. Executives should park there, not staff." The laughter that followed hit me harder than the words. My cheeks burned hot, and I swallowed so hard it hurt. I wanted to argue, to scream that a parking spot didn't define my worth. But the lump in my throat made it impossible. That night, I drove home in silence, the hum of the engine drowned out by the echo of his words. Too close to the building. Not for someone like me. When I walked inside, my grandmother was waiting in her recliner, knitting like always. She noticed my face before I could hide it. Without asking a single question, she handed me her old leather-bound notebook. The corners were worn, pages filled with her neat, looping handwriting. "Write it down," she told me softly. "Every time they try to make you smaller, put it here. Someday, you'll see how much space you've claimed for yourself." I didn't know it then, but that notebook would become the foundation of everything. That night, I wrote the first line. "He took my parking spot today. One day, I'll take more than that back." That notebook never left my side after that day. Every page became a record of the small humiliations I endured, being told I smiled too much in meetings, or that I shouldn't bother with ideas above my pay grade. And slowly, between the lines of frustration, I started scribbling something else. Plans. The truth is, I didn't quit right away. I needed the paycheck. But I did start saving every dollar I could. Lunches became peanut butter sandwiches in the break room. Nights became side hustles, bookkeeping for small businesses, helping a friend manage her Etsy shop, anything that put a little more money into my account. One evening, I stumbled into a free seminar downtown on real estate investing. Honestly, I went for the free coffee, but I left with fire in my chest. The speaker, a woman named Diane Torres, spoke with the kind of authority I had never seen in a man's world. She owned blocks of property across Chicago, and she didn't apologize for a damn bit of it. Afterward, I lingered, notebook in hand, nerves buzzing. "Miss Torres," I asked, "how did you start?" She looked me dead in the eye and said, "By getting sick of being told where I don't belong. By dirt, Olivia. They're not making any more of it." Her words became my North Star. From then on, I studied. I devoured books, watched late-night lectures on YouTube, learned everything from zoning laws to market timing. My first big break came when I bought a rundown duplex on the South Side. Everyone said it was a money pit. I patched drywall myself, painted the walls with aching arms, begged friends to help me fix plumbing with YouTube tutorials playing in the background. 6 months later, I rented both units, and for the first time, my bank account had more than a few $100s in it. I reinvested every dime. Duplexes turned into triplexes. Then came a small strip mall. Then, unbelievably, a downtown parking lot that nobody wanted because it looked too run down. I saw more. I saw potential. There were nights I cried from exhaustion, falling asleep at my desk with chipped nail polish and takeout containers around me. There were mornings I stared in the mirror, doubting whether I had the right to call myself an entrepreneur. But every time I opened that notebook, I saw the words of the girl who had been shoved aside, humiliated, and underestimated, and I knew I couldn't stop. Years passed. My portfolio grew, and with each purchase, I made sure to keep quiet. On social media, I posted modest snapshots, brunch with friends, a walk by the lake, the occasional birthday dinner. Nobody knew about the contracts signed under my name, the properties quietly accumulating in my LLCs. Not even my family. Until one day, without realizing the poetry of it all, I signed papers on a deal that brought everything full circle. The parking lot across from Carter and Brooks Financial. The same one where my boss once told me I wasn't good enough to park close to the building. Now, I didn't just have a spot. I had the deed. The morning of the meeting, the sky was steel gray, the kind of Chicago day that smelled faintly of rain on pavement. I arrived early, heels clicking against the marble lobby floor of my own office building, Hayes Property Group. But the meeting wasn't here. It was across the street, in a glass-walled conference room that overlooked the very parking lot they were trying to renew. My parking lot. I adjusted the cuff of my blazer, the one in deep navy that always made me feel taller, stronger. My assistant handed me the lease contract, neatly tucked in a folder with my signature already marked on the final page. "Are you sure you don't want me in there with you?" she asked. I smiled. "No. This one's personal." When I walked into that room, time folded in on itself. There he was, Mr. Mitchell. Older now, a little heavier around the middle, but still with that same smug tilt to his chin. He didn't recognize me at first. To him, I was just another executive walking in, another name on the other side of a contract. "Ms. Hayes," he said, standing halfway, extending a hand. "Pleasure to meet you. We're here to discuss the lease renewal for the lot." I shook his hand. Firm. Controlled. "Of course. Let's get started." For the first half hour, it was all business. Numbers, square footage, terms. His team of lawyers shuffled papers while he leaned back like a man in command. But then came the moment. He flipped to the signature page, his pen poised. His eyes landed on my name and froze. "Olivia Hayes," he read aloud, confusion flickering across his face. I leaned forward, resting my hands on the cool glass table. "That's right. Olivia Hayes. You might not remember me, but I used to work for you. At Carter and Brooks." His jaw tightened, but he tried to mask it with a polite laugh. "Well, I've had many employees over the years." "You moved my car once," I interrupted softly. "Told me the spot by the building wasn't for someone at my level." The silence that followed was thick, pressing. Even his lawyers glanced at him, uncertain. I let the moment breathe, then pulled the contract toward me. "Funny thing, Mr. Mitchell. That same spot. It's still there. But now, Every car that parks in it does so on my property. His face drained of color. He looked down at the papers again, as if searching for an escape. You own the lot? His voice cracked just enough for me to catch it. Yes, I said, my tone even. Every square foot. And if your company wants to keep parking there, they'll do it on my terms. The room went so still I could hear the faint hum of the HVAC. For the first time in my life, I saw Mitchell speechless. The man who once made me feel invisible couldn't even find his words. I stood, gathering the folder, and walked to the floor-to-ceiling windows. Below us, rows of cars gleamed in the late morning light. Employees rushed across the lot, coffee cups in hand, unaware that the ground beneath them no longer belonged to the company, but to me. Turning back, I caught his eyes. You see, Mr. Mitchell, you were right about one thing all those years ago. That spot was too close to the building for someone at my level. But the thing is, I'm not at that level anymore. His hands twitched nervously on the table, his pen rolling out of his grip. I smiled, not cruel, not gloating, just certain. I'm at a much higher one. Mitchell cleared his throat, but the arrogance in his voice had thinned. Well, I'm sure we can come to a reasonable arrangement, he muttered, eyes darting anywhere but mine. I slid the contract back toward him, tapping my manicured nail against the clause I'd added myself. We can. But this time, the terms won't be written for your convenience. His lawyers leaned in, scanning. One of them frowned. This is unusual. Not unusual, I corrected softly. Necessary. I outlined my conditions clearly, my voice steady. First, every employee of Carter and Brooks would have equal access to the lot, no more reserved spots for executives, no more assistants shoved 2 blocks away. Space is space. People are people. Mitchell shifted in his chair. That's not how. It is now, I cut in. You wanted the lot. These are the terms. Second, 10% of the lease proceeds would fund a scholarship program for young women entering finance and real estate. Call it repayment, I said, for every time a girl was told she wasn't good enough or that she didn't belong in the room. The lawyers exchanged glances. One of them muttered, "That's philanthropic." I smiled. It's just business. The kind of business I run. Third, Mitchell himself would sign a clause acknowledging Hayes Property Group as the sole owner of the lot. Not just his company's landlord, but mine. Your signature, I said, sliding the pen toward him, on paper that admits the ground you walk on, the ground your employees drive across, belongs to a woman you once dismissed. He looked at me then, really looked at me, and for the first time I saw it. Shame flickering in his eyes. The same man who once had me trembling in a break room now sat cornered, small, under the weight of his own history. I could have humiliated him further. I could have rubbed salt in every wound. But instead, I leaned back, folding my hands in my lap. You know, I said gently, I don't want revenge. That was the old me. The girl who cried herself to sleep after being told she didn't deserve a parking spot. The woman I am now? She wants fairness. She wants progress. She wants every assistant walking into your office to know she has the right to stand tall. The silence stretched. Mitchell swallowed, then reached for the pen. His signature came out shaky, but it was there. Black ink against white paper. The final admission. When he slid the folder back to me, I didn't gloat. I simply closed it, tucking it under my arm like the notebook my grandmother once gave me. This is how we move forward, I said softly. You get your lease. I get my terms. And maybe, just maybe, you'll think twice before underestimating the woman sitting across from you. Mitchell gave a small nod, the fight gone from his shoulders. For the first time, the power was mine, and it wasn't about crushing him. It was about finally standing in the space I had claimed for myself. A week after the contract was signed, I drove past the lot. The sun was setting low, painting the rows of cars in soft gold. Employees hurried across the asphalt, briefcases swinging, laughter spilling from small clusters. No one knew the history buried in that pavement, the sting of a young woman being told she didn't belong there. But I knew, and that was enough. Word traveled, of course. Carter and Brooks employees whispered about the new lease, about their old boss's sudden humility. Some even sent quiet thank you notes to my office after they realized the lot no longer played favorites. One, a young woman named Hannah, wrote, "I don't know who you are, but I just parked next to my boss's car today for the first time, and it felt equal." I read her note 3 times, my chest tightening with something close to tears. That was the victory I never saw coming. At home, I pulled out the old leather-bound notebook from my grandmother. Its corners were more frayed now, the pages filled to the brim with years of anger, plans, and triumphs. I flipped back to the very first entry. "He took my parking spot today. One day, I'll take more than that back." My grandmother was gone now, but I could almost hear her voice as I traced the ink with my fingertips. "Someday, you'll see how much space you've claimed for yourself." She had been right. I closed the notebook and set it on my desk, next to a stack of contracts waiting for my review. My life wasn't defined by revenge anymore. It was defined by choice. By owning the ground beneath my feet, literally and figuratively. And every time I crossed that lot, I felt the same quiet power, the knowledge that no one could ever move me out of my place again. Because the truth is simple. He once took my parking spot. Now, every time he pulls in, he pays me rent because I own the lot.